could be putting runes or mastering your runes with any mix at all. You could have better mana regen, higher vitality, better hit point regeneration. There's tons of statistics that you can kind of mix and try to make yourself better. But if you wanted to focus purely on the critical damage, as a lot of Ashe players do, you can max out all those runes. Now, as we spoke earlier, the mark runes are the ones that are the most beneficial to that. So they're going to get the highest level, attack rate increase from that. The seals and the glyphs are going to get about half of what the marks do. So the yellow and the blue ones get about half the amount of the red ones do. That's pretty much the same given any stat that you're looking at. Conversely, like vitality or increased hit points, you're going to get about double what you get from the marks and the glyphs that you would if you were to put just have it on the seals. The quintessence already is going to be 1.5 times or more damage or more benefit than any of the other runes. But again, you would be taking out a considerable hit if you didn't max out things like movement speed with your quintessence, which I typically like to do on all my rune builds, is get all 3 quintessence of swiftness, which increase your movement speed by 1.5%. I figure that's a very good value, and just like having boots of speed or something in Dota, it's very essential in the game to be able to move around the map quickly and to be able to run away from things and to be able to chase people. And to not have that extra 4.5% run speed can really slow you down and can affect getting a kill or escaping just barely. So I find it pretty essential to have that. However, not a lot of people do that, and I don't know if it's because not a lot of people are mastering the rune system. I tell you, it's very, very complicated. Excuse me, in the beta system right now. It took me a half a day or so just to really figure out how the rune systems are working, and maybe an hour or so to kind of experiment with the rune system to figure out builds that I liked with each individual type hero, like a strength hero or a nuking hero that I like to play. I make a different page which I can just flip to and use before each game. It's a little bit complicated. I'm sure it's going to be revamped a little bit before it launches, but right now that's how it works. In order to get runes in this game for the beta, you have to just click Get Runes, and it automatically gives you a random set of runes. You can't actually go through and pick the exact rune that you want, like the most powerful rune that you can find. You have to randomly keep clicking Get Runes until you get the rune you want. And that can take upwards of an hour or more to get like maybe 1 or 2 runes that you're looking for. So if you wanted to max out all 9, it can really take you a while depending on what stat you're looking to increase. Now there's more common runes that come up in the grab bag, as how I like to call it, all the time. So I've got tons of those. There is a system called the Combiner, which looks like it would be a really good system for like a recipe type build, but unfortunately it's really random. If you use the same set of quintessence and runes or whatever to combine them together to make a better rune is basically how it works. There's really no public recipes or anything like that out there. It's basically just put a bunch of runes in there, click the combine button, and you'll get another rune. Usually it's better than the runes that you put in, but it's completely random, so you can't specifically find the rune you want using the combiner. I imagine that's going to be changed when it's launched, but again, that's something we're going to have to just wait and see. Right now the rune system is very, very complicated, and there's actually a good majority of people who have maxed out abilities to get all these crazy runes that just don't bother with the system because it's very, very complicated, and there's a good chance that it's going to get changed even sometimes in the beta to see how it works. So we were talking about maxing out that crit percentage. Another hero selection that you might want to look at is increasing your hit points. There's a hero that was just released in this new version called Dr. Mundo, and I've been playing him just a little bit. He's a big purple troll-looking like guy with his tongue sticking out, and he's got like a ripped-up medical jacket on and torn brown pants, kind of like if Dr. Jekyll was going to turn into Mr. Hyde, or you know, how that kind of transformation. He looks like a really big monster, big purple monster with black spiky hair. And he's got a big cleaver in one hand, and he's got a syringe, like it's looks like it's filled with like teal liquid that's just jabbed up into his shoulder on his back. So it's very cool looking characters. A lot of these characters are done really, really well, and very much in the style of a lot of the Warcraft characters. Kind of overdone arms, really big, and maybe smaller heads. They look very, very similar to like a comic style, like Warcraft likes to do things. Anyway, back to Dr. Mundo, whose name might even be changed in the future. his abilities are purely based on his hit points. He doesn't even have mana pool. So to get items or to get runes that increase your mana pool really wouldn't do anything for him. He doesn't even have a mana pool, and giving him mana wouldn't do anything because all his abilities are based off his hit points. Conversely, it's probably a really good idea that I found to max out his hit points as much as I can. And through the runes, within keeping my 15 or 4.5% run speed quintessence, I was able to get, I think, 350 something odd hit points with all the other ones mixed together by level 18. That's another thing that I'll talk about conversely here about the runes. That's the other element to the runes is there's two different basically power, I guess we'll not call them power levels, just two different levels of runes for each stat that you want to do, and I'll talk about that in a second. But let me talk a little bit more about Dr. Mundo, since I'm looking at him right now, probably not even saying it right. His health is average. Compare that to the Drows, who was very weak. So he's kind of a tank class. He's actually considered a tank class as one of his attributes. His attack damage is average, so he's got average health and attack. His spells, which are based on his hit points, are considered strong. And after playing with him, I can tell you they very much are. He's got an AE flame ability that kind of goes around him, and I'll go over his abilities here in a second, that acts a lot like Cloak of Flames or Radiance in Dota, things like that. They're really, really good for farming and even for getting in really big team fights. To just pop that on. It drains a little bit of his hit points, but it does a lot of damage to area of effect, which is really good. Right around him, it's like a circle of flames that emanate around him. His difficulty is considered average. Again, I think that has something to do with he's the only hero right now that is purely based on his hit points. So if that's not something you've played around with, it might be a little bit difficult to learn. But I found that because he doesn't have that mana pool and that whole confusion aspect of the game, that he's actually a little bit easier to play comparatively to some other heroes that I've tried out. Back to his abilities that I said I'd talk about. He actually throws that big cleaver in his hand, and it's called the Infected Cleaver. It says he hurls the cleaver, dealing damage equal to 20% of his target's current health and slowing them for 50%. It's actually a really spammable ability early on, and again, because it's based off his hit points, if you just get like a HP regen item, or if you've got some runes that help you regen your hit points, you can really spam that as often as it's up, either getting the last hit on some creeps, or just kind of hitting at the enemy heroes that wander too close to just get their hit points down a little bit. That second ability is called Burning Agony. This is the one I was talking about that was AoE, very, very powerful. It says it's active. You have to turn it on. Dr. Mundo drains his health to deal continual damage to nearby enemies. The passive, which is when it's just turned off, Dr. Mundo regenerates a percentage of his max hit points per second, his max health per second. So again, he's really based on his hit points, and this just passive ability helps him regen when you turn it on. It's kind of like you can click it on and off. I guess it's really similar to Rot, except it doesn't have a slow. Remember Pudge's Rot? Kind of works like that. It does a good bit of damage and kind of makes him lose a little bit of his hit points as it works. So Rot's a pretty good analogy, I think, for this Burning Agony. Masochism is his third ability. It just says Masochism increases Dr. Mundo's physical damage by a flat amount for 5 seconds. In addition, Dr. Mundo also gains an additional amount of damage for each percentage of health he is missing. I usually got, when I played him, I only got one level of this. But he is a hero, a melee hero, and generally anything that you can do to increase their just straight attack damage is very, very beneficial. Just to get it when you're in there and you finally do get a hit and you want it to count. His ultimate is called Sadism. Dr. Mundo sacrifices a portion of his health for increased movement speed, reduced cooldowns, and drastic health regeneration. The sacrifice a portion of his health, it's actually very low considerably right now. I use this as a regen, actually. So when I'm pretty low at health, maybe at last quarter or so of my health, from spanning my infected cleavers or using Burning Agony, I'll turn on Sadism to get increased movement speed and regen my hit points really quick. And also because it reduces your cooldowns, it's actually a fairly good ability to do when you're thinking about going in for the kill. So be at low hit points when you start, because your Masochism that third ability I was talking about gives you a bonus based on how many hit points you're missing. It's similar to how the troll in Defense of the Ancients works, in Dota works. You know, how if he's lower in damage, he does, or if he's lower in health, he does more damage. So you see a lot of these similarities come from inspiration from a lot of the heroes in Dota, and they're all combined to make a new hero. It's not that they're copying them; they're just getting inspired. I think inspired is a really good word, because a lot of the mechanics are not the same at all as far as the actual statistics and numbers that are used in Dota. They're actually unique to balance in this game, and a lot of the things are different about them. They don't do specifically the same thing, so they're definitely inspired is the good word I would use to describe that. So that's Dr. Mundo. Let's go back and talk a little bit more about the runes, and then I'm going to talk